Yes, you can get way easily adequate protein in a live food diet. All these are really high in protein. The problem is you have to eat a bushel of them. It's, they say you can get adequate, but it's a kind of a white lie, okay? Because you can do it, but you got to eat a whole lot, which most people can't possibly do. So we do need protein concentrates that make a difference. But here are the top vegan proteins. So Popeye had it right. Protein, spinach is 49% protein, okay? And kale is 45% protein. And broccoli is, again, 45%. And cauliflower is 40%. Mushrooms, which are actually a really good source of protein, 38%, and parsley is 34%, cucumbers 24%. So we're kind of going down the line here. Tomatoes are 18%. Now let's look at beef, chicken, and eggs. So beef's about 25% protein. So it's about half as much as spinach. And chicken is 23%, and eggs are 12.5% protein. Fish, it varies. Tuna's 29%, going down to flounder, which is 13%. So there's a big variation with the different fish. But my point is that nothing is going to quite give you that. But just to be fair, meat is more concentrated protein. That's the point I want to make here. So even though we can say, okay, spinach is 49% protein, you've got to eat a lot of spinach to do that. Okay? So just so we're not confused, you do need, for most people, not if you're a slow oxidizer, but for most people who are fast oxidizers, you need a little bit of protein concentrates. Nuts and seeds are really good. You eat more nuts and seeds, and that works. And nuts and seeds are good for a lot of reasons. They did a study with 119,000 people over 30 years. That's a pretty good study. Okay, and if you just ate nuts, you had a 7% decrease in death rate. If you ate once a week, 11%. If you ate 2 to 4 times a week, you're up to 13%. If you had nuts and seeds every day, it's 20% less mortality. So it's an impressive kind of message. So what I find is that in today's world, you can have certain kind of protein concentrates that for fast oxidizers you can easily do. Chlorella, spirulina, all kinds of things are out there. It's really, really, really simple. And the highest I see most, in general, the highest I see, super fast oxidizers, people need lots of protein, they have nuts and seeds and maybe 2 tablespoons of some of these protein concentrates 3 times a day. So that's it. What about fat? Well, breast milk, 54% fat. We need fat. We need the long chain omega-3s to have a healthy brain. Fat comprises 60% of the brain. All this anti-fat thing is actually dangerous. Low fat is associated, literally, a low cholesterol, less than 160, is associated with 4 times more depression, up to 6 times more suicide. I consider that pretty important. Women who are low in cholesterol are 21% more likely to have a miscarriage. If you have adequate cholesterol, you're looking at 5% tendency. People who have higher cholesterol actually have better functioning brains, better functioning memories, better cognition. So we need fat to optimize our function, particularly the long chain omega-3s. This is just a comparison. So I put people on a 25 to 45% fat in their diet, which, again, it varies according to your constitution. And we have Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. Ornish, this 10% low-fat diet, which I honestly don't think is so healthy for most of the population. And the funny thing is, the cholesterols, which I say don't worry about, because women with a cholesterol of 270 live 28% longer. That was a big, big study of 52,000 people. But you can see in the middle range that 159 is really pretty just where you need to be, having 25 to 45% fat in your diet. So it's really, really not a problem. The big problem is triglycerides, and that's way less because carbohydrates raise your triglycerides. So a high carbohydrate diet, 70-75% is going to raise triglycerides, which are dangerous for your heart, which are associated with increased heart disease. So this is the cholesterol fact of the 28% Norwegian study, 52,287 people. And the meta-analysis, 21 studies, all combined 340,000, basically showing there is no difference between a cholesterol of 160 and 260. No heart disease. No evidence to support the widespread mythical belief that limiting saturated fat intake is beneficial or protective for heart health. And that's like studies for the last 30 years. So we have a myth. And actually we have a kind of a paranoia about cholesterol. It's like probably second or third in the list of things people are afraid of, okay, is the cholesterol. Don't worry about it. We need the cholesterol for our brains, okay? For example, this is studying in people, average age is 89. So they kind of look at that, and they found for each 39-point increase in cholesterol, there's a 15% decrease in mortality rate. And that's at 89, so it's kind of telling us something, because those people were likely to die. High cholesterol is associated with better memory. NIH study, okay? People with the highest cholesterol get better test results on cognition. Boston study, okay? So it's just something to keep in mind. And historically, our ancient biggest source of energy was fat. So, but there is a problem with low cholesterol. I mentioned increased suicide, violent behavior, more tendency for memory loss, and Parkinson's. So we want to the low-fat diet has some dangers to it. That's what I want to say. Same thing with omega-3s. People who are low in omega-3s are going to have more suicide, less better brain function, less better heart function. There's a lot of pieces going down here. You need the omega-3s for heart and brain and eye development in the babies. So it's also really good for college students. The amount of stress they have, they took college students and gave them lots of omega-3s before taking tests. Their stress was 1/2. The college students, 1/2. So it supports the manufacture of acetylcholine, which is really good for your brain, and GABA, which helps you relax. So just a few things there. It protects against cancer of the skin, cancer of the prostate, cuts breast cancer down by 50%. So we're talking important. You need fat, you need the long chain omega-3s, it's really important. Specifically, optimally, they're talking about 1,200 milligrams of the DHA and 400 to 600 milligrams of EPA as kind of the optimum zones for your overall health, brain function, vitality, really longevity, and mental state, and really antidepressant. Okay, carbohydrates. This is a Taoist teaching. A little bit it's about if you mix smoke and fire, your body will not walk on the jewel pond. This is women Taoists. The jewel pond is a term they use for liberation. And so they're commenting on what to eat. This is 11th century. And it's abstaining from cooked food. and also bigu, grains, okay? Because they say eating grains, and the new books are out like Brain, Grain Brain and things like that. They saw really 1100, okay, that the eating of grains inflames the brain and blocks your spiritual progression. So it's not a new idea. It's been around. In 475 BCE, the Taoists said, don't eat grains. It's not good for your spiritual life. Fructose is another kind of myth. It isn't really so good for you. And it's confusing, but I explain it in the diabetes lecture. It doesn't directly raise your blood sugar, but indirectly it disorganizes the leptin and insulin signaling, and turns off, it doesn't turn off the ghrelin, which is a hormone that says eat, 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 eat. So people on a high fructose diet tend to be overweight a lot more. It disrupts the whole thing. It also inflames the brain. Its cancer cells love it 10 times more than they love glucose. So it's not so safe. It's associated with increased diabetes, increased heart disease, increased high blood pressure, gout, kidney stones, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and increased agings. So non-alcoholic fatty liver disease 2 to 3 times more if you're eating a high diet in fructose. We want to not go above 15 to 25 grams. What is that? It's 2 bananas, a few kiwis, something like that. That's your safe zone, okay? I just want to get, okay. So that's the key. So brain inflammation is a big deal. Cancer, it feeds cancer cells, accelerates aging. That's fructose, okay? Not really better. Okay. So gluten's another issue that's kind of hit the consciousness. And that's, I think, what the Taoist women were talking about. But they didn't have the word gluten. They just knew grains inflamed the brain and blocked the spiritual process. So turns out gluten in the gluten grains creates inflammation in the brain, which is associated with Alzheimer's and decreased cognitive functioning. And a lot more blood sugar. And if your blood sugar goes higher, your brain shrinks faster. And with age, your brain tends to shrink unless you're doing all these other things like getting adequate B12, which helps your brain grow. There's a lot of play going on here. So A1C is a measure of sugar in your body. So people who with the highest A1C had almost double the amount of brain shrinkage compared to people who had a normal A1C. So it's a significant thing. So it's the inflammatory carbohydrates, low and healthy fats are where we're seeing an attack on the nervous system and brain function. Now what about sugar? Well, sugar is, most people accept sugar is a problem. It's associated with depression, it's associated with heart disease, it's associated with cancer. It scrambles the brain. It just goes on and on. So here are the optimum ratios, but with a lot of variability. 25 to 45% fat, 10 to 20% protein. A person who's a slow oxidator, about 10% protein, and carbohydrate 25 to 45%. Now why is this important? Because when you understand all these things, then you can design a live food diet that will be successful because it fits your constitution that's laid out in chromosome 19. This is very scientific. It's not about belief systems. We are unique people. We are unique individuals. We have unique gene patterns. We need to understand that. And then we can pick the right diet. So when, again, there is no one diet for everybody, okay? And the live food diet is a cuisine It's not a diet of macro, it says there's only one way, one right macronutrient ratio. You've got to figure that out. You've got to really think about it. So the idea is food's energy. That's the thing I want you to get. And how do you feel? How do you judge? Is this diet working? Don't read a book. That's not going to help you. Trial and error, find out the diet ratio that gives you the most energy, the most endurance, the most focus, the most clarity of mind. That's how you pick it out. It's your direct experience. Nobody can tell you what you're supposed to eat in that way. Yeah, I can say live food, but that's a cuisine. I am talking about the macronutrient ratio. That's where you get successful. That's where I get, working with clients, 99% success rate on a live food diet, because we're making it to their constitution. We're individualizing, and that's what I'm saying. And in conscious eating and rainbow green light food cuisine, we have, how to figure it out, questionnaires to do. So it's well within your ability to roughly figure it out. I have a thing for fast flow oxidizers. I have a thing for Ayurvedic body types and so forth. And once you get that figured out, then it's still trial and error. Okay? A chart can't give you the full answer, but it'll tell you how to look at it. And then we experiment. You are the divine experiment. And it's called trial and error. But you have to pay attention. You make a shift, see how it is for 4 months. Because you can feel good for a week. Oh, good, I did a certain diet. I feel great. Well, yeah, but we kind of have to look at 4 months. Is it sustainable? Does it make you feel good throughout the day? How's your energy? How's your mind? How's your memory? How's your thinking process? These are really important questions. You got to just ask the question, and then you start coming up with, a way to think about it, which is really what I'm talking about. That's the why and how of live food. So you've heard, yes, live food really does make you stronger, more flexible, and improve brain function and stimulate the optimal balance of your neurotransmitters. Getting rid of 400% of depression, 300% of anxiety. These are real things. But you still have to get the right combination to get these optimal effects. And that's really kind of the bigger point that I'm making. And it's good to think about food as energy and not as calories. Okay, so this is a little painting somebody did. It was at the end of I did a 40-day fast. And it was at the end of that. We are an energy vortex. That's what it is. And the idea is to eat in a way to become a superconductor of the divine from a spiritual point of view, but also from a physical, in this world point of view. Because if you're really eating the right diet, you'll have optimal physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health. You have to have all four to have the right balance. That's the way you know you're really on the right diet. See, that's the key. So that's just kind of the ending point there. So in each generation, we're given the medicine for healing that generation. Okay? And the live food, plant-based diet is the medicine for healing this generation. And probably future generations as well. And I just have added this to my lectures. So you might feel bad about the state of the world. A lot of people do. But it'll be okay because people like you are here on this planet. Oh, okay. Very good. So we have a few minutes for questions. Yes, go ahead. Yes.
for the needles, where to place them, to reduce blood sugar levels?
Well, I don't use acupuncture for that. I mean, you can, but it's pretty standard, to be honest with you.
Okay, all right, fine.
It's pretty standard. The main thing is it's the diet that heals the diabetes.
Okay. Fine.
And when we did all the research, we didn't do anything extra to think, oh, it's because of the acupuncture. See what I mean?
Yeah.
It was all diet. That's how we did it, to have a cleaner research.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
So I assume that you can get saturated fats from coconuts and palm oil.
Correct.
Where did people who weren't in tropical areas get saturated fats aside from meats?
Well, the truth is coconut oil is available pretty much everywhere at this point. You can't miss it. You can get it at Safeway.
Oh, now, yes, but I mean
Yeah.
historically, like in times past. How did mankind get it?
You know, it varied. I don't know what they did, because you can get these kind of long chain omega-3s in your blue-green algaes. You can get it in the spirulina. So it's available, not as obviously like coconut oil. So my answer is you can still get it. There's certain plants that have the omega-3s as well. And you also can make them. You make it internally. You can convert it with the other fats.
What do you think of bitter melon for diabetic?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand what you said.
Bitter melon for diabetic patient.
Bitter melon.
Oh, that's good for diabetes, yes. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, how it acts?
It's a classical herb, usually in India, for diabetes. But we didn't give people those things. We just did it with diet for the same reason we didn't do acupuncture. Later, afterwards, we gave different herbs after the research was done. And bitter melon is a main player. Any other questions?
Thank you for your talk. Is there any one set of tests available that would give you a baseline for these items you're talking about, be they vitamin, minerals, etc.? And do you have a book where you can customize your own diet?
Well, all my books are about getting the understanding so you can customize your own diet. Because ultimately, only you can do that. That's the point. But you have to, my 13 books are Conscious Eating, Rainbow Green Life Food Cuisine, Spiritual Nutrition, are all about the background so you can create your priorities for customizing.
Yes, hi.
There is a problem because, unfortunately, there's no average person, which is nice to know. Okay, so there's no average blood results either. And on top of that, even the blood tests are about 80% accurate. But think, you're given a range as if there's an average you. And we are unique individuals, so that throws a whole different way of understanding blood tests. So they're not as helpful. So two people can have the same vitamin B3 values, but for one person they're deficient, and another person it may be fine or it may be excess because of our unique physiology. Now, does that cause a problem? If once you understand that it's really your body is different than somebody else's body, your need for B3 or B6 or B12 is different than someone else's, then it gives you the option to look at more intuitive ways to kind of design your nutrient intake, if you get what I'm saying. But I don't want to freak you out by thinking, throw away your blood test. But I have to be honest, I don't personally, myself, I don't really do blood tests. I'm kind of monitoring in different ways. So maybe once a year, maybe once every 2 years, I'll take a look to see how, on certain things. But it really is kind of more of an internal way because we are unique. And eventually, it's just seeping into allopathic medicine. Oh, we can't give everybody the same dose just based on their weight because their bodies handle our medicines differently. They're just getting to that concept. So it's not that far out of concept that even allopathic world, which is good, is now beginning to try to individualize certain doses to and certain medicines to people's constitutions. So they say, well, that medicine that works for A, B, and C doesn't work for D, E, and F. So they're now making efforts to distinguish. And eventually, it'll get to where they can figure that out. Okay.
Yes, question. I have been hearing from quite a few doctors that consuming oils of any kind, even if they're derived from healthy sources like coconut, avocado, olive oil, can damage the endothelium and is therefore a significant contributing factor to cardiovascular disease, and they're citing scientific studies to that effect. Would you care to comment on that?
Well, this is all a kind of controversy. It goes on, and I'm just going to refer to the fact that the more general studies with hundreds of thousands and millions of people over the last 30 years doesn't support that. I'm going to comment on the fact that the Mediterranean diet, which is lots of olive oil, is one of the highly respected diets for longevity and good health. So I kind of look at it clinically like the Mediterranean diet, and I kind of look at all the research that's out there that I was citing. It's like the studies with up to 21 studies with 1.25 million people that really are saying it doesn't, taking saturated fat is not a problem in whatever form you take, which includes oils, which is part of that. So I kind of look at the bigger thing, and the low-fat advocates are really are saying something else. I think the predominance of the research, the predominance of the research is suggesting that fats, oils, and so forth, as long as they're raw and cold pressed and so forth, are not causing a problem and are associated with longevity and are not associated with heart disease. So I think it's like, I understand that argument. I understand the research is going to vary, but the predominance of it, not the exception, which you can do. You can find research to support everything, but you can't find hundreds of research supporting that versus a few. So my answer is the longevity studies and all the studies that I've been talking about outweigh those kind of exceptional studies.
There's one more comment that they're claiming that those people are claiming that the Mediterranean diet's benefits are because of the foods, and therefore, even though the oils are included, the foods are what give it the health promoting aspect in spite of the oils being present. So I just want to make that comment.
Right, but you can't say that. You don't know what it is. You just know that there's lots of oil in the Mediterranean diet, and it's not damaging anybody's health. You could say it's because of the foods. I don't think it's that healthy a diet compared to a live food diet, but it's got lots of oil in it, and that's my point. And there's lots of evidence that olive oil is good at treating blood pressure, and it's good for expanding your arteries, and lots of things that happen. But the point is, that's all academic argument. The fact is the diet has been shown to be good and it has lots of olive oil. Therefore, it wouldn't necessarily, you can't say it's going to be bad for your health. And you can't say because of the food, which I think is just mediocre, is somehow overriding the olive oil. I mean, you can say whatever you want. You can make all these picky arguments, but it doesn't really hold water.
Hello? You have a
Yeah.
question? Hello, over here.
Yeah, go
In
ahead.
terms of individual protein requirements, how does one determine if you're a fast oxidizer or a slow oxidizer?
So I have a questionnaire, 30 questions that gives you a pretty good idea. If you're like 20 yeses and 10 no's, that's pretty much whatever that is. But the second thing is trial and error. Very practical. So if you eat a high protein meal and you feel satisfied and you feel good and it's lasting for the next 4 hours, probably the right diet. You eat a high protein meal and you feel congested and weak and not feeling so good, probably the wrong diet. If you eat a high carbohydrate diet, just vegetables and salad, and you're hungry in an hour, pretty good chance you're a fast oxidizer and it's the wrong diet for you. If you eat, like myself, I eat 1 meal a day, and it's mostly salad with a few nuts and seeds, and I'm full for the rest of the day, probably a slow oxidizer. You see what I'm saying? It's like a clinical thing. How do you feel when you're eating? How do you feel after you're eating in terms of sustained health and well-being? Trial by error. We really need to go back to trusting our kind of direct experience. So I hope that helps. Yes.
Wait, start again.
Can you tell us about the genetic marker 19?
What's a 19? It's chromosome 19.
Chromosome 19, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and how accurate that is, since genetics seems to be the big thing and not food, and genetics seems to cure everything and not food. And since we didn't know anything about genetics, all the Sicilians lived till 100 and the Irish died at 60.
Well, I happen to agree with you. I was just trying to make a point. You still have to figure out the right ratio. The point I'm making is that there's no one diet for everybody, and that's really the key. Once you get your unique individual, I don't have people to get a genetic test. Anyway, you can. It's still at the experimental age. You can just figure it out by seeing how you feel and your energy and your sense of well-being. That's the way to do it. I'm making the point, however, is that there is some genetic evidence that suggests we are unique individuals and we need to do the research on ourselves. Do you see what I'm saying? I wouldn't go to a genetics for saying, well, this is a diet and I should have X amount of protein. It's not that detailed. There's just variations. But the fact that it exists is kind of a message that supports we are unique individuals. And we got to do the research. Okay, time for one question more before we stop. Okay, go ahead. Question on type 1 diabetes. But I'm going to hold because this isn't a talk about diabetes. Okay, I want to be fair. So anything about the live food, vegan? Question. Last question.
Hi.
Make it a good one. Go ahead.
Hello, Dr. Cousens.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm
Hello.
over here.
Okay.
Hi, Dr. Cousens. The
Yes.
the MTHFR, can that be reversed? The
No,
mutation?
it's a no. But what that is that certain people don't make folic acid. There's a break. So you just need to get the intermediary in your B vitamins. And there's at least 2 companies that have that intermediary that in your B vitamin thing. So for people with that genetic thing. So it's a good thing for producing folic acid. If you have the genetic thing that doesn't have a full pathway, you do need to get a B vitamin that has the intermediary step. So it's an important question. It's a detail unless you have that problem.
Thank you, doctor.
Good. So the way I want to close with this is that there isn't one diet for everyone. We are unique individuals. The live food diet amplifies every level of your well-being, and we have to be very, very thoughtful in applying it to make it work. So thank you very much. Very good. And have a good rest of the day.